In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the spark plugs in a Subaru Impreza 2011. So this is the engine here, and you can see where the spark plugs are by following the spark plug cables, which you can see right here. So we have two cables coming off here. You can follow them down, and then you can see where they enter the engine in the side there, and then in the back over there. In order to get at those places, you have to remove the battery, and so it's a bit of more of a hassle than some other cars, but it's not horrible. So on the other side, you can follow the other two spark plug cables down towards the engine, and you can see over here. And in this side, you have to remove the air filter and the hose that goes to the engine. So basically, I'm going to be taking the battery off, and you remove the battery by first disconnecting the negative terminal, which is there, and then disconnecting the positive terminal and pulling the battery out. And once you've disconnected that, then you can really get access into your spark plug area. So removing the battery is pretty simple. The only thing you need to be careful of is to not connect the two electrodes, and then you shouldn't have any shock hazards. So basically what you do is you unscrew, this is a 10mm nut, and you unscrew that, pull it off of the negative terminal, and then put it somewhere away from the positive terminal. Then you pull off this red cap here, and then also use your 10mm wrench to unscrew this terminal connection, the positive terminal connection, and remove it from the positive terminal. So one of the things that was a little bit annoying about removing the negative terminal is there's this clip here which connects onto this bolt there, and basically just use your wrench and just keep turning this until it comes off. It doesn't detach, it's actually a screw, so you need to just keep turning it, and even if it makes sounds that sound like it's breaking, just keep going, and if you need to replace it later, you can always do that. So once you've removed those two terminal connectors, remove the part that actually holds the battery in place, and that is this guy here. So basically just loosen this nut here and here, and then you can basically kind of like pull this out and off the battery. And there's basically it's got these two little hooks which fit in below the battery and really hold it in place while you're driving. So basically put that to the side, and then you can remove the battery. So in order to remove the battery, basically just grab the entire box, which is this kind of like soft plastic material, and just kind of lift it out. It probably weighs about 20 pounds. I don't know, maybe 15 to 20 pounds, something like that. And just kind of like gently pull it out of the car, and then now you have some space to work. And you can see there's the two spark plugs, or I guess the connectors to the spark plugs here and here. And so now that you have access to them, you can really actually work on it. So what I'm going to do next is basically remove these caps, and then remove the spark plugs, and we'll see where it goes. Okay, so I've removed the two spark plug sockets. You can see them here, and they actually don't look too bad. The front socket, which you can see right there, is the easiest one to get to, and I used a 6-inch extension connected to a spark plug socket, 5/8 spark plug socket, which you can see here with the brand new spark plug in it. And basically, here's another socket here, spark plug socket. You can see there's a little rubber boot inside, and that basically holds the spark plug in place and doesn't just drop it in. So What I used for the front side was a 6-inch extension on a 3/8-inch drive, and that was pretty easy to get at. The back part was much harder, and basically what you need to use is one of these universal sockets, or universal angles, I think that's what it's called. And basically this allows you to kind of orient the spark plug socket however you want, or you can use a spark plug socket that already has that on it. And then in this case I connected a 3-inch extension to 1.5-inch extension, and then connected that to my 3/8-inch drive, and that allowed me to get into kind of the back area of the back spark plug socket, which is a little bit difficult to get to. So now I'm going to add the spark plugs back in, new spark plugs back in, and the manual says to add them in the reverse order that you took them out. So I will be, since I took out the front one first, I will take out the back, I will put in the back one first. So start with the difficult one and end on the easy one. First step to adding a spark plug back into the engine is to make sure you hand tighten it down. So now I've hand tightened it all the way down, and now I'll use my torque wrench in order to get the proper torque. So the owner's manual says for this car to torque it down to 15.5 foot-pounds, or 21 Newton meters. Okay, so I'm also going to replace the spark plug cables, and I showed those earlier. They're here. Basically what you need to do, you need to unhook this side of the cable from the engine, and then if you unclip these clips, you should be able to just kind of lead it out and pull it on out, and then re-thread the new cable on there. So it's easier to pull the two off first, and then you can get at the 4. They're labeled numbers there, 2 and 4. And these actually look like they're in good shape, but I'm gonna replace them anyways because it's fun. So one thing to know, these guys, you don't really have to just pry them out. Basically the way to open them is they're closed, and you can just pull them to the side and then open them up instead of having to use a screwdriver and really jam it out. So that is pretty helpful. All right, well, next time you'll see it, it'll be replaced. So when you're putting on these new spark plug cables, it can be good to use a little dielectric grease on the inside of the cable. So basically what you want to do to be, so what is a dielectric grease? So a dielectric is an insulator to DC current. So basically when you are, it keeps current from flowing through. So if you get your dielectric grease onto the conductive areas of your spark plugs, like in here or at the tip, it's actually going to make your spark plug work a lot worse, or potentially not at all, since you will not be able to get electric current to the spark plug. So basically what you do is you just put a little bit, just a little teeny bit, onto the ends of a little ear cleaner basically, and then you swab the inside of your of the boot here, and just be careful not to touch the inside conductive ring. So now I have 2 of the new cables. You can see they're bright blue. These are NGK spark plug cables. They look beautiful. And I got my NGK spark plugs in the engine block, and now I've connected the spark plug boots, which are these guys here, to the spark plugs. So on the passenger side of the car, you have to remove a few things in order to get at the spark plugs. The air intake, and then this housing for the engine air filter, and then you kind of have to loosen these fittings here in order to pull that hose off, so you can really get in at the spark plugs, which are down there, and replace these cables as well. So it's not too hard to do, but it can take a little bit of time. So to get at this nut down there, that's a 10mm nut. I'm using a 10-inch extension on a 3/8" drive, and basically that'll allow you to remove your air filter box. So now that we have everything out of the way, I was able to basically remove the spark plugs, and I'm about to put in 2 more. So again, you're supposed to replace them in the reverse order that you took them out. So I took the front one out first, and then the second one. So I'm going to be putting in the rear one, and then the front one. And I did this, much the same way on the other side. Use a torque wrench when you're tightening these back in, but first start by hand and then use a torque wrench. And it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, so it shouldn't be too bad. I think the only thing to know is when you're removing the engine air filter, there's a couple of clips, and I'll show them later, at the top of the filter. It's much easier to remove that once you unclip it and then disassemble and take 1/2 out at a time rather than the whole thing. Gives you allows you to have way more space. So I'll show that when I'm putting it back in. So using a torque wrench is what's required to make sure that you have the right, you've tightened the spark plugs in the correct amount. So since this is 21 Newton meters or 15.5 foot-pounds, basically I just wanted to show you the sound of a when a torque wrench hits the torque that you've set. Basically you get kind of a click and a bit of a bend in the shaft. So that'll tell you that you've hit the torque, and then you can stop, and you're done with that side. So here are the replaced spark plug cables, beautiful blue cables, and they are connected to the spark plugs on both sides of the engine. Basically when you're putting them on, just make sure you push pretty hard. You'll feel kind of a sliding, you'll feel it kind of like slide on there. Not quite like a pop feeling, but you'll definitely feel it kind of just slide on to the spark plug. So, and just make sure you get it good and tight. So earlier in the video I said that it's much easier to remove this section if you remove the clips and take this out as 2 different pieces. So just kind of wanted to show you what I mean. Since I already put it back, I'm not going to show you it taken apart, but basically you just flip these 2 clips, and then you unconnect this, loosen these, and then you can pull this whole section out. And then you can also take this back section out of the air filter holder, and once that's removed, you can remove the 10mm bolts there and the 10mm nut there, and then you're able to pull the whole thing out. And there's a little reservoir under at the bottom. I can't quite show it to you, maybe you can see there in white. And so you kind of just have to jiggle it out, and you'll pull the whole thing out, and shouldn't be too hard. But it's much easier if you remove this first and then pull that and the lower reservoir. So there you have it. It's not too difficult to replace the spark plugs. It just can take a little bit of time.